What's up, guys? One of the requests I get most often, particularly from folks who've been playing for a little while and have maybe learned a few tunes and started working on the ornaments, is where do you put the ornaments? How do you know where to put them when you're playing a tune? Whether you're reading it off music or whether you're just picking up the melody by ear, how do you know where to put the ornaments? And I've hesitated doing a video on this because there really aren't any specific rules for it. A lot of it comes down to personal style. Some folks like more ornamentation, some folks like less. Some of it's regional. Particularly over in Ireland, there's different ways of playing, and they're taught certain ways. Me not having learned from any particular one single source, my style has been to just kind of put it together based on what I hear and what I like. So as a result, there really aren't any hard and fast rules. That being said, the title of this video is 5 Rules on Where to Put Ornaments. So before anybody takes to any kind of message board and says this idiot's telling people that there are rules for ornaments, they're not. I just can't think of a better word than rules, so we're going to use that term real loosely. The tune I'm going to demonstrate this on is one called Cooley's Reel, which is a good standard session tune. It's played all over the place. It's a real solid beginner tune. A lot of folks start out with it. It's a reel in E minor. And I'm not going to break down the whole melody because that's really not what this is about. This is more about the ornaments and where to put them. So I'm going to play the tune like I usually do. I'll just run through it quickly and then kind of go break down some of those, what we're calling rules. So here we go. So that's typically how I would do it. Now, we'll go through some of the tricks that I would use to figure out where to put the ornaments. And again, these are not hard and fast. These are just 5 things that kind of jumped into my head that I like to think about when I'm playing these. So first one, rule number 1, repeating notes. Whether you see it written down or whether you're picking it up by ear, anytime a note repeats, stays on the same note twice, that's usually an opportunity for a cut, a roll, something like that. So as an example, that's the basic melody to start off this tune, right? So you could play. A couple of different options. And that's just because there's a repeating note. Stays on the same note, in this case the high B. And that happens throughout the tune. So the basic melody there in that kind of second section of the tune, so from the top. So you can kind of work in a roll there. So that's the first one, and one that comes up a lot, because a lot of these tunes do have repeating notes. Now the second one is similar, not quite the same thing, and rule number 2 then is quarter notes. Anytime you have a quarter note, where you're just sitting on a note for 2 beats, it's kind of the same concept. And again, if you're not used to reading music, don't worry about it, but a quarter note is basically twice the length of an average note in a reel, the average note being an 1/8 note. So in this tune, so really in that little phrase, the only part is that 1 B. And that's effectively a quarter note. The rest of those are 1/8 notes. And you can do a short roll on that, or that piping ornament that I've taught in another video. So, right? So that's another good spot to work that in. Any kind of notes that are either repeating or held. Quarter notes, repeating notes. So those are the first 2 rules. Third rule is a transition to a high D. And in that case, it's kind of a specialty thing for the flute and the whistle, because of the way the physics of the instrument work, you can do a triplet, specifically a triplet up to that high D. Now in this tune, there are not any exact spots to demonstrate that, but in the B part, so it doesn't jump straight to the B, or straight to the D rather, but what you can do, you can do a transition like that. And really, any tune where you're going, say, from an A to a D, or a B to a D, you can do a triplet to get there. So look for that in the tunes, and it doesn't have to be that close. You can be all the way at the other end of the scale. A lot of tunes will jump from the bottom D to the high D, specifically in the transition from the A part to the B part, or from a G. You can do it pretty much anywhere that you're going to a D, just because of the way that the instrument is set up, and a lot of these tunes have that phrase in them. So the fourth rule then is going to be rhythmic accents and accenting the one. And what I mean by that is, if you're playing these tunes, just the basic melody, they just sound kind of flat, which is why the ornaments come in. You can use the rhythmic accents to highlight certain beats that wouldn't necessarily be accented. So I'm trying to think of a good example here. So let's say, and that F sharp. And in that case, I'm actually accenting both the F sharp and the D. So you're hitting that offbeat just to kind of give it a bit more lift, a bit more jump. The other part of that rule is accenting the one. In Irish music, typically it's 1 and 3 that are the strong beats, as opposed to 2 and 4 in typical pop music. But in those kind of phrases, you want to make sure that you're hitting that big strong one a lot of times. So and you're just kind of leaning into that beat a little bit and making it stand out. Because that's really what the ornaments are all about, is providing a bit of dynamic range, because you don't have a lot of control over the volume of the instrument. You can play, if you blow harder, it does get a little bit louder, but it also changes the octave. You don't have a lot of control like you would, say, on a fiddle or a box, where you can adjust the volume. So that's what the ornaments are for, at least in this case. So now, rule number 5, the last one I'm going to talk about here, is accenting the beginning of phrases. What I mean by that is, when you take a breath, you want to make sure it sounds intentional, not just because you ran out of air. And if you want to go back and look at the video I did a couple months ago on phrasing, that might be worthwhile also. But using a grace note or some other type of ornament to accent that first note of the new phrase after you take the breath can help make it sound more intentional. So, for example, so as I take the breath there, you can hear, or I'm just hitting an additional grace note. Again, it just kind of makes it sound a bit more intentional. So those are a few things. Hopefully that'll get you started and maybe give you some ideas on where to put some of these ornaments. Again, certainly not hard and fast rules. Adapt these to your own style, and by all means, listen to other folks too when you're hearing these tunes. Particularly this one, this tune Cooley's Reel, is one that you should be able to find pretty easily on YouTube because it's a good standard tune. You can find other folks playing it, and so you can pick and choose things that you like from different players, and that'll hopefully help you develop your own style. So hopefully this helped. Hopefully it answered a few of those questions. If you have any more, by all means, drop them in the comments or send me an email, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. So thanks very much, y'all.